Some of this stuff is actually out of the aircraft industry, and this is an example of the sort of things that they've worked hard on. When you look at a company like Boeing and the items they make, the planes they make, or Airbus in Europe, when you buy a Boeing aircraft, you also get a stack of manuals, this high, perhaps even higher. And the way the industry works is you maintain the aircraft exactly as the manufacturer of the aircraft tells you to maintain. So what Boeing have done is they've created a process of having very tight outcomes. If I gave 100,000 technicians the right to go and maintain aircraft as they want and say, guys, here's my aircraft, can you maintain it please? If they do it 100,000 different ways, I will naturally get thousands of different outcomes for the same solution. But Boeing don't say that. Boeing's saying you maintain our aircraft just the one way, the way that we tell you. And in doing that, what Boeing have done is create a process ensuring high quality performance every single time. Now planes still fall out of the sky, so that process is not yet perfect, but it's a lot better than it was 20 years ago, a lot better than it was 50 years ago, and they're always refining, always improving. So that philosophy of Boeing and Airbus to have a one only way to maintain and operate an aircraft, no matter who you are in the world, produces the reliability that we now enjoy in air flight. That logic is sound, it works, it can be improved, and that's the logic we should apply in every industry because it gives us one outcome, a known outcome, every single time. Again, aircraft industry, because when people make mistakes in aircraft industry, many people die. They've had a big look at this, and there's a lot of work being done by aircraft industry, which I've simply grabbed and show how it's real and put into perspective what's happening in general industry. What we know is technically, engineering-wise, very few accidents are from those areas there. 80% of the accidents have human factor type issues involved, including lousy business processes. Instructions that don't explain things properly, that confuse people, that don't have information that's vital to understand. And here's our figures from that previous presentations and previous extracts I mentioned. So 80% plus of our problems are business process and human. So if I'm going to try and improve a company, I don't want to work on the machinery. The machinery are suffering because of us and our lousy business processes. If I'm going to improve a company, I want to work on the processes and the people. If I can get the processes improved and lift the people up to understand more and appreciate things more, I'm going to get the results that we want. So in plant and equipment wellness, in the plant wellness way, it's about understanding where the focus has got to be. Education is going to be a big player. Very good, clear instructions, good procedures, people trained to the procedure. So same here, if I have a procedure that is well written, clear, everybody's taught to follow it, then I can guarantee the outcomes, because that's what Boeing done. Boeing has guaranteed the outcomes of their procedure for maintenance and flying aircraft. They've controlled the training, the knowledge, the practices, the procedures to guarantee a certain result. One of the first things we're going to do is understand why things fail, discover what causes that in a company, and then change their documentation to include the prevention of that failure. So we're going to be a lot of documentation revised, because that's where the trouble is. It's going to be people not knowing and documents that are useless to us that don't know. The challenge, I guess, not so much trouble, the challenge is we're dealing with people. It's human factors. All of us are different. Now, we've got different shapes and physical abilities. Our psychological aspects are all different, all vary depending upon our previous experiences. Our physiological is different, and that affects the way our brains work, and psychosocial as well. There's a whole bunch of factors that the aircraft industry realises they have to manage. And we're dealing with people who are hugely variable and don't really want to change people. It's going to be impossible to change people. What we're going to do is build a process that allows people to be people, but the failures do not then result into breakdowns of machines. So I don't want to be looking at blaming people. We are doing the best we can. We're all doing that. But if my business process is a lousy process that allows human error to multiply and to magnify, then I want to change the process first. In the aircraft industry, the dirty dozen is the 12 areas that they're focusing very hard on to try and improve and control the impact of people on their business. The 12 key things is lack of communication. Literally, you know something that you should have told me, but you never did because the opportunity to communicate never came up. Teamwork. Teams, when you look at how a team operates, we help each other. If I'm weak in one area, my buddy comes along and lifts me up and strengthens me by giving me his support in my weak area. So we want to have teamwork across the company and across departments because where I'm strong, I'll add value. Where someone else is strong, they'll add value to me. So I want to have teamwork because of the benefit teamwork brings. When you think about what teamwork actually is, in terms of reliability, there's me alone. There's number one guy, number two guy, and on we go. What I've done here, in terms of process outcomes, I have actually linked the three of us in parallel. Reliability thinking, logically, once we're in a team, we're working off each other. I support him, he supports me, this guy supports us too as well. So reliability-wise, we're actually creating parallel activities and parallel people. As a consequence, of course, the team output is a better outcome. So the teamwork, that's why we want to have it, because as a team, we'll produce better results globally than one person alone. I can't know it all. He can't know it all, nor can he. But he knows things I don't know. He knows things that we don't know. The three of us together, we can do more and we know more as a team. So yeah, teamwork makes a lot of sense. There's serious money in teamwork, serious good benefits. Norms, of course, is company culture, and that'll be what's been inbred through misunderstanding across the years in the past. And we've got to challenge that because most of our problems we cause ourselves. Pressure literally is production want this machine back, so I'll do a 4-hour job in 2 hours. You do a 4-hour job in 2 hours, there's only one way to do that. I've got to take shortcuts. I take shortcuts, then of course I'm going to have the payback from that very shortly. Complacency literally is, I don't really give a damn, and just here for the money is an example, oh gee, it's nearly time to go home, I'll just leave this one go. I'll do this in a fast way to get it done before I've got to go home and wash up. Lack of knowledge literally is that not knowing and not knowing we don't know. That's a bit, conscious ignorance, I guess, or unconscious ignorance. Lack of resources or lack of awareness. This is an awareness of what I'm doing and its consequences and how to do it properly. What is the right way to get the right result? I can maintain a car. You give me a car to maintain and I'll maintain it. I can work my way through. I'll do it this way and I'll do it that way. What I don't understand is by doing it that way, what the impact will be in the coming time that car's in service. Lack of resources literally is not having the manpower, the skills, the equipment, the machinery, the measuring devices to do the job properly. Distraction, we are flesh and bone. We are beings whose brains can get attracted by other activities. If last night I had a big fight with my wife and I come to work this morning, what's on my mind will not be work, it will be about the big fight with my wife, because I know that there's a disruption in the family. So distraction will be what happened last night, might be what someone does in the workspace that's a bit crazy, and my mind focuses on that and away from the job I'm actually on. So when I go back to the job, I may have missed a whole step out, but thought I was actually in the right place. Assertiveness is the willingness or the courage to speak up when something is wrong. If you watch somebody do up some fasteners and they didn't use a torque wrench, and you know they should use a torque wrench, he's having the gumption to say, look, it's not my job, I understand that, but look, the procedure it requires you to have a torque wrench, and I didn't see you using that. Are you going to do it the way the procedure says? Having that courage to say that. Fatigue is that. Our brain tires, our muscles tire. As we get older, we'll tire even faster. And stress, once things are stressful, our brain blinkers. If we're under too much stress, the way our brain works is we'll actually begin to worry and begin to focus on getting rid of that stress, escaping the issues. And so we don't begin to see other opportunities that would have been good solutions. We just come right down and blinker ourselves. So it's worth knowing about these because in Planet Wellness, if we're going to have, we're going to help people to become better, then we're going to have to front all of these. We're going to have to approach these as human being with human being. It's there. It's never going to go away. So I can't walk away from the fact that we won't change. We've got to then find answers that allow us to be humans, but is the human error rate table. This actually comes from a reliability engineering book that's been around for a few years now, and it is the average of human error rate across industry, across the world. It's a number that represents a typical situation. Now, every company is different, every person is different, every situation is different, so that number will be different depending upon the circumstances, but it's indicative. So I want to stick with this as an indicative representation of what it means in terms of human error rate and the effect on human error. And of course, the whole point of this is to find some answers, to minimise human error, because we saw before that human error leads to 10 to 100 times greater failure rate than had there been no human error. So let me bring this up so I can read it together with you. Okay. Just have a read of what this table says. So we have here human error rates of in the order of 1 in 10,000. So for example, read a 5-letter word with good resolution wrongly, 3 in 10,000. Let me just explain that so that we get the numbering right. So 0.0003 is the same as saying 3 over 10,000. So in 10,000 times of reading a 5-letter word with good resolution wrongly, 3 times we'll read that word, think it's something else, but think it's still right. We'll misread and think it's right, 3 in 10,000. Not very often, but it happens. Another one here, select wrong switch, the mimic diagram. So I've got a diagram of the switch panel. I'll get that wrong, 5 in 10,000. Not very often, but that switch is one that leads to a failure. Then every now and again I'm going to throw the wrong switch and it'll lead to a breakdown. Fail to notice crossroads. Fail to notice major crossroads, 5 in 10,000. This is how we're designed. Our brain's designed to simplify things down to the bare basic processes and then make it a habit. You know, I'll drive home and I can drive and then not even think about how I got home. I went through all the lights, I turned left, right, here, there and there. How did I get home? Up here, our brain has got a set of arranged neurons and it just follows that rule. And this is what happens with older people. Anyone older than 50, you've got to watch out that which groove are they on today. If they're in the wrong groove, they'll just go automatically, not even think about it. And that's human nature. Has been, always will be. And we're going to be smart enough to realise that. So maybe for old guys that are 50, maybe I better give them a buddy. You know, me, 56, I better get Fred here. Fred, he's 35. Fred, just check on me every now and again, make sure I haven't made a mistake. And I do that on purpose. I buddy Fred up with me because of this situation here. The way we are designed as animals and human beings, our brain works that way and we can never change it. So every now and again we'll get caught out. Now that was simplest possible task. Then we go down to routine simple task. So read a checklist or digital display wrongly, 1 in 1,000. So we've gone from 1 in 10,000 range to 1 in 1,000 range. Another one down here, wrongly carry out visual inspection for a defined criterion. So go and look for a leak on this valve or this machine, whatever the case is. Though I'm told exactly what to do, I will get it wrong on average 3 in 1,000 times. Fail to correctly replace PCB. My instrumentation tech or my electrician pulls a motherboard out of a PLC program, a machine, puts a new motherboard in, and he thinks he's got it in right, but in fact, 4 in 1,000 times it's actually wrong. And that's just the nature of the beast. We do a job, we think it's right, in fact, we have not gone the next step to confirm it is right. Then across to the other side of the page, we are into a routine task with care needed. For example, mate a connector wrongly. I've got 2 hose fittings, I've got to put them together and they'll be done wrongly 1 in 100 times. So we're getting to the situation now where it's happening more often and some of these things are getting tricky to do as well. What's another one there? Do simple arithmetic wrongly 1 in 100 to 3 in 100 times. So if your technician has got some mathematics to do in his instructions, in his work task, and he does the mathematics wrongly, then if I have 100 technicians, then I can guarantee one guy at least will have got that particular calculation wrong. Now, if the calculation is wrong and he puts that number into his program or into his calibrations, then that's now going to go wrong as well, all because of this particular risk of mathematics being done incorrectly. Interesting one down here. Read 5-letter word with poor resolution wrongly. 3 in 100. So as things get hard for our brain to pick up on, we start making more mistakes. It begs the question, for example, if here we have read 5-letter word with poor resolution wrongly, it's 3 in 100. 3 in 100. And back here, we saw read 5-letter word with good resolution wrongly, 3 in 10,000. And the only difference is resolution. What should I do with my procedures? How should I present information to my guys? Because if they can't read it very well, what's the mistakes? If I can make it clear, easy, obvious, colour, bolding, lots of white space, I then create a situation where the error rate goes right down. And this is a choice that maintenance planners have to make. When maintenance planners put together their procedures, their documentation, what's the smallest sized font you should have in documentation going to operators and maintainers? Because if they can't read it, they're going to start making mistakes. So what I say to my guys in my maintenance planning course, I ask the question, what's the smallest resolution you should have on your documents? Because I can actually create high reliability by having information easy to read. Normally you settle about 12-point font. Nothing smaller than a 12-point font in documentation going to maintainers. I'd be happy with a 14-point font because it says so here. If the guys can read things clearly and it's easily to resolve with their eyes, they will make less mistakes than if they can't resolve it. Their brain will make up the words. And there's 100 times less failure in having good documentation. Easy to read. Our brain loves colour. Colours, imagery. So less and less words, more and more pictures, clear pictures, and the picture becomes something our brain latches on very, very quickly. We love visual information. So this table here has some very interesting outcomes for us to use. Another one here, put 10 digits into a calculator wrongly, 5 in 100 times. How many guys have misdialed the phone number? You've all dialed the wrong numbers over the years? Happens all the time. It's just the nature of being human beings. Now we get into the situation of maintainers. Now we're into the complicated non-routine task area. And here the failure rates are typically 1 in 10. So when things get complicated and non-routine, as maintaining machinery is, our machines are very involved engineering devices, and we don't do this sort of work all the time, day in, day out. Now we're down to a situation where we have a real serious risk. Fail to recognise incorrect status in a roving inspection, 1 times in 10. So if I have a work order and it is to go and inspect the plant for problems, I'm going to walk past 1 problem in 10 because my brain doesn't pick it up, and that's just the nature of the beast. If I add stress on top of that, as in environmental stress or stress from unrealistic expectations, I go up to 0.25. So the guys that tell you they work best under stress, so I love stress, I work the best, bull the dash, not true. Because stress makes our brain blinker. We're going to escape the animal chasing us, the beast behind us in the jungle that was chasing us through the trees. That's stress. And our brain blinkers right down to escape one pathway, not multiple pathways. The one that really scared me when I first saw it was the very last one. Failed to act correctly after 1 minute in an emergency situation, 9 times out of 10. 2 minutes into this emergency situation, everything goes wrong. So in maintenance, we don't want to have our guys in emergency situations. Because in an emergency situation, we do not think straight. We are not built to think straight in high risk situations. So maintenance, if it comes a high risk, high stress scenario where things are done in emergency environments, then things are going to go wrong automatically because we just don't see all the options available to us. To me, this table actually is interesting because it gives us an answer of what we need to do. It says over here, where the sigma rate is failure rate of 1 in 10, which is a sigma rate of 2 to 3 sigma. If we go from complicated non-routine task to routine task with care needed, to routine simple task to simplest possible task, we go from 1 in 10 to 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000. Make things simple. Keep things very, very clear, very, very obvious. And the table tells you what's going to happen. You're going to get less troubles. Now these numbers here, just going to show you a couple of things more about what the table's actually telling us. This number 2, fail to recognise incorrect status on a roving inspection. So if I have a work order that's a roving inspection, I have an error rate here in the range of, what is that, 1 in 10. But we saw before, if I then go in and convert my work order to a defined criterion, so wrongly carried a visual inspection for a defined criterion, it now becomes 3 in 1,000. So I've gone from 1 in 10 chance of error to 3 in 1,000 chance of error simply by introducing defined criterion. Go and inspect for this, and inspect for that, and inspect for this one, inspect for that one. Very clearly. So I now develop a checklist, as it says up here. Red checklist of digital display wrongly 1 in 1,000 times. If I define exactly what to look for, then I am creating a high reliability situation. So my documentation now is valuable to me. If I create a process where I have defined criteria, look for these things. If it's not there, then report. If it is there, great, carry on. The table says to me, I will produce reliability. I'll produce a far better outcome and far fewer human error effects. So this table is very valuable. I wish I had a bigger one. I've been looking for a more and more table with more of this information because it's telling us what to do. You know, from 1 in 10 to 3 in 100, or sorry, to 3 in 1,000. Just by writing good documentation that's easy to read with defined things to look for. Now, of course, that means my documents are going to be thicker. Of course. I'm asking guys I'm going to be writing with bigger text, more pictures, and asking them to look for specifically these 25 things. So I'm going to have more documentation. Is it worth it? Yeah. Is 1,000 times less mistakes or 100 times less mistakes worth it? Your risk matrix will soon make it clear if it's going to be worth it or not. Now, another thing too that's changing technologically wise is paper will be replaced shortly with things like iPads and things like handheld computers. So when I've got that technology, then it doesn't matter how long the paper is because it's going to be electronic and I can have... So as a manager, if I'm not aware of the impact of human error on my operation, I would never go and look at using those sort of tools. I would never think about, hey, you mean a piece of paper will create this situation for me with a decent documentation and some simple checklists? Yeah. You start using checklists with defined criteria, you will create that situation. And nothing else has to change. But of course somebody has to write that. Somebody that knows the machine, knows what they're looking for, knows what the problems are, will have to write that documentation. So yes, we have an answer in that table. We have what to do is to simplify things, to make things clear for our brains, to give our brains information to work with. You know? Pass, fail, yes, no. Very clear, defined criteria. And you will create fewer problems. You will save